Hi, everybody. Welcome to this month's blog. Today, we're going to be sharing their monthly message all about organizational resiliency. And it's a hot topic for 2026, according to a new article out of Benefits Canada, and we'll certainly share that with you. It's really talking about how our workplaces are changing. We see multi-generational workplaces, we see aging workforces, we're seeing diverse cultures and diverse workforces as well. And as things are changing and moving, we need to adapt. And that's really what resiliency is all about. I'm going to spend my message, though, talking about what we can do as leaders when it comes to being ambassadors of wellness and ambassadors of well-being within our workplaces. And there's a few things that we can really do and role model when it comes to this exact piece of resiliency. First of all, we do know that employee well-being is an important piece to makes business sense. And we're finding that specifically in some of the data around attraction and retention. We do find that as workforces embrace well-being and strive for healthier workforces and a healthier culture, we do tend to see less turnover, less churn, as well as improved loyalty and engagement across the board. And this is all valuable insight when it comes to it. But what can we do as leaders? There's actually a few things I wanted to talk about as we navigate this year when it comes to our resiliency. We do recognize that it's unprecedented times. We are there's so many external pressures and internal pressures, and everybody's feeling it in one way or another. And I think now more than ever before, the focus needs to be on how we can stay proactive in what we're doing in our workforce, in our workplaces, rather than waiting too long and being more reactive. So, one of the things that I wanted to share is how can we know that there is a challenge when it comes to change, and change isn't always easy. But when it comes to the challenge of change, how do we navigate that bravely? How can we be influencers of resiliency in a changing world, in a changing workforce? We need to be empathetic and we need to be authentic when it comes to our leadership styles, as well as how we engage with people. We do need a sense of understanding. We do need an understanding of, people are struggling. And so when we recognize this, we can navigate this bravely. We can have courage and lead with courage when it comes to ensuring, what we do and how we do it is resonating well. I like to think of this being an authentic leader and utilizing what I like to, a symbol, I guess, is a moral compass. And it's literally a compass that, the north, east, south, and west, but it means a little differently and lands a little differently when it comes to resiliency if we think of a moral compass this way. So the North is defined as a North Star. We know what the right thing is. If we're having a tough conversation, if we're dealing with a situation where it might be more challenging, we know what's right. And so the N is equivalent to the North Star. East, is equivalent to empathy. E for empathy. So when we are able to embrace and be ambassadors and champions of a culture that celebrates change and navigating bravely, we can look at E as empathy. And then S is support. We provide support as needed. And then W is wonder or curiosity is how I like to look at it. So when change is happening, when our cultures are changing, when our workforce is changing, we do tend to sometimes get stuck. And so how we can get unstuck is looking for ways in which we can ensure that we are being our true selves and leading that way. The second piece of this is I like to use this as a term called embrace the space. So there's a space where we go through when we're talking about change and trying to bounce back from change and all these different things. But there's a space that I like to label the learning space, where it's the space between not knowing and knowing. So it almost feels like we're up and down and all over the place. And I use the analogy, it feels like I'm in a hurricane sometimes. But that space is something that we almost need to learn to embrace. It's uncomfortable. It's not something that's familiar. It throws us off balance, specifically when we're dealing with change. And so resiliency is recognizing when this is happening and embracing it, knowing that that chapter is happening and we will be learning from it. That's really what learning with a growth mindset's all about, right? It's looking at where we need to move and where we need to grow. That's definitely a great analogy when it comes to resiliency. A really great read um, is called Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance by Angela Duckworth. A really great read on this exact thing. It's sort of the power of passion and perseverance, kind of going through that uncomfortable space of change. It's always a helpful thing. And it's another example of building resiliency, building that muscle, empowering and inspiring others to do the same. We as leaders, I think, need to really look at what we can do and what we can control, and being authentic and empathetic around the throughout the entire kind of journey. The third element is fostering positivity. You know, there's more negativity than positivity because of the world, the what's going on, the decisions that are being made, um, uncertainty, flux, and all of the above. And so when we start to dissect this a little further, if we can start recognizing these setbacks and almost moving them towards story, I'd like to use the analogy of like stitching a new garment, finding the opportunity, going through the hard stuff to get to the other side. I find to be really, really powerful. And if we're able to influence others that way with our attitude, with our energy, with our emotional intelligence, it allows us as leaders to pave the way and role model others. So just something of interest. I'm always one when I start talking about culture and morale and happiness at work, specifically in this topic of resiliency, I encourage us to think of how we can show up as ambassadors and leaders of a culture of progress over perfection. Meaning we move the dial a little bit. This may show up in maybe what we're offering our employees from a wellness program perspective, maybe some of the different elements of our benefits plan, which the article shares as well, some ideas. But how do we celebrate that? What are the small wins we can celebrate? So not necessarily the kind of the perfection and the large awards and large recognitions, but what can we really embrace, and how can we win? How can we enjoy the small wins? And that is really how we can start to build more positivity in our workforces than negativity. Um, we have enough of the negative stuff. Let's sort of shift focus and let's look at change. Let's look at how we show up. Let's look at what we offer our employees to really resonate, I think, well with this message of optimizing organizational resiliency. I think there's some really valuable pieces here that I hope and I encourage us all to lead by example as we move forward this spring in our workforces. Have a great day.